So a lot of people ask me, when I'm buying a PC, when I'm building a PC, is it okay to get some used parts? Because typically the used market is a really good way to save some money. And today I kind of wanted to do a video where we break down what parts to buy used and what parts you should probably buy new, even if it's going to cost you a little bit more. And we're going to be mentioning, refurbished and open box stuff as well. We'll cover that. But mostly this is going to be for if you're building a PC and you find some good deals on eBay for used components. So let's go ahead and get started. So let's start off with probably the most obvious one, the case. A case is a case is a case. You can't really go wrong. You can get a case used. That's perfectly fine. If it's missing the hardware, how much is a pack of screws at Lowe's? I mean, really, come on. Case is perfectly fine. Generally, I would say that if you can get it from a good seller or maybe open boxed, I would say that a used good case, like a good brand, is probably better than a brand new bad brand case, or lower quality brand case. So if you can get something higher end that's used, I would probably go for that over something lower end that's, sealed. This is a tricky one. Let's move to the power supply. Power supply is going to come down to the brand. For example, I would take a used Seasonic over a no-name gray box power supply any day of the week. Seasonic, those things will last forever. But those, gray boxes that come in the OEMs that feel cheap and, make noise, those are pretty concerning. And you don't want to take chances with a power supply, I'm telling you. Power supply could take your whole system with it. So be careful. Do some research. Know what the good brands are: Corsair, EVGA, Seasonic. I mean, these are top of the line power supplies. You really can't go wrong. They're going to hold up pretty well for you. But definitely check what the brand is when going with power supplies. Motherboards. Alright, motherboards themselves are pretty durable. They're made, they're pretty durable. There are just a few little idiosyncrasies you need to know. Because one bad component on a motherboard could kill it. Definitely, if you are going to want to get one used, contact the seller. Make sure you get pictures. Make sure you can verify that it's in working condition. If the board was used in overclocking, make sure you are extra careful and get more pictures, because excessive heat could potentially warp a board. It probably won't be a problem. That's usually more of a problem with lower end boards or older boards. But it's just something to keep in mind. But if you can verify that everything is legit and it's perfectly, working normally, motherboards typically aren't going to give you too much trouble. CPUs. CPUs is right there with cases. Absolutely no problem. CPUs, they're durable, they're built to last. You can drop one, and as long as you're not Linus Tech Tips, it'll be fine. They're solid. You can go with them. Even overclocked CPUs, I don't have a problem with buying, because they're built like workhorses, man. They're made for that. They can withstand the heat and the power and all that. And there's no moving parts really to speak of that you're gonna worry about getting damaged. So absolutely, I never really hesitate buying used CPUs. I think the one thing to keep in mind is if you're buying an AMD CPU, definitely get some pictures to verify that there are no bent pins on the other underside. That could be a problem. But as long as you can verify that all the pins are fine, perfectly fine. No problem with CPUs. CPU coolers. CPU coolers are a different animal, and that's going to come down to what type of CPU cooler that you get. When it comes to used CPU coolers, let's start with air coolers. Air coolers are a pretty safe bet. an air cooler, you know what an air cooler is. An air cooler is just a hunk of metal with a fan on it. So, worst case scenario, you get it, and then it dies soon. All you gotta do is replace the fan. And, you know, you're back up and running. There's no risk of failure there. I would say with something like these more advanced, like, air coolers, the taller ones, like the Hyper 212 Evo from, I think, Cooler Master or something. Make sure that it has all the parts. Make sure everything's there. Some people will have like an Intel board and they'll throw away the AMD connector. Make sure it has everything that you need for your system. AIOs, I wouldn't buy them. I would stay away from AIOs. Those things are just prone to failure. I don't water cool. That's a topic for a different video. But if I did, I still would not buy a used AIO cooler because it's just a matter of time. The clock is ticking because it's going to fail at some point. You know, all it takes is that pump to go out, you don't realize it, and then your CPU is overheating and your system shutting down. Don't do it. If you want an AIO, get a new one. Oh, and I forgot about memory. I forgot about RAM. How could I forget about RAM? RAM is solid. Don't worry about RAM. Right up there with the CPU. RAM, maybe not as durable as a CPU, but still, like, I would feel better about buying used RAM than a used graphics card, that's for sure. Very rarely are you just going to have RAM just die. You know, static is always a potential issue. I can't think of too much else, but RAM is typically a safe bet, so don't worry about that. Graphics cards, graphics cards are generally pretty stable, pretty sturdy. The one thing about graphics cards is you want to see where they come from. Typically, I'm pretty hesitant to get mining cards unless they're dirt cheap, and I don't really care about them failing. But if you want like a long-term gaming card, you might want to just go with like another guy's used gaming card. I probably wouldn't buy from mining. With graphics cards, the whole reason you're hesitant to buy a used graphics card is because you don't know the condition it was in, and then the biggest fear is that the cooler could give out on you. Now, if you're going to rip the cooler off and put water cooling on it, that's one thing. But for the other 99% of us, we're just going to keep the stock cooler that was on it on there. And if those fans give out, you know, you're either going to have to replace the fan or take off the entire cooler and put another cooler on there. And for the time and effort that could be, you know, spent doing that, you may as well have just gotten a new one for the other extra $50 instead of taking the time to pull it out, replace the cooler or the fans, and, you know, making sure that everything's working fine. It's kind of those risk versus reward things where, you know, it could save you some money, but if that were to fail, you would have wished that you spent the extra $50 just to go with something new and sealed. So that's just something to weigh the options with. You know, make sure, you check with the seller, was it overclocked? You know, what were the conditions in it? Was it run 24/7? You know, how long did you use it? For what time period? How many years or months or whatever? Just, you know, do your research. But if everything that checks out, I would not worry about a graphics card, you know, just breaking on me if it was taken care of properly. Hard drives. I'm going to include hard drives and SSDs together, but generally, SSDs are a little bit safer. Personally, from an engineering background, I don't buy used storage. It's not worth the gamble. You know, I personally view hard drives as disposable items. You know, it's just, you just don't know. You don't know how many read and write cycles that thing went through. You don't know, and it's impossible to verify. And I'm betting you the seller, whoever's selling you a hard drive, isn't going to know either. As in terms of like refurbished, I have bought a few hard drives that were refurbs, and I had them in a NAS, and they were fine. I haven't had any fail. But they had a warranty. So if you can get hard drives, the spinning actual hard drives, if you can get them cheap enough and they are, refurbs or open box with a warranty, okay. But if it's just like an eBay thing and they're just selling a used hard drive, and it's kind of like you're taking a gamble. And if you get it and it fails on you in 2 weeks, you're gonna wish that you just bit the bullet and bought a new one. So I generally avoid getting used storage. SSDs, there's a little bit more of wiggle room there because there's no spinning parts and they're not as likely to fail, but they still can have heat problems and you never know. So I would just avoid used storage altogether. That is the one place where I just would not take chances. If you are that desperate to save some money, I don't really have any advice other than good luck to you. Let's talk about peripherals now, monitors. So, monitors are kind of, it's going to depend on how you are personally. I cannot deal with any imperfections in my monitor. I returned a monitor that I bought because it had one single stuck pixel. And I just couldn't get over it. It bothered me too much, and I had to get rid of it. I couldn't deal with it. If you don't care, and if you can get over that with the money that you save, okay. Go right ahead. Do keep in mind, ask the seller how long they had it. A backlight can die over time. It can get dimmer. The internals of the monitor can degrade over time and the color won't be as nice. It'll be less vibrant. So those are some things to consider just with the nature of how monitors are made. So generally I avoid them, but if you can get a good deal, maybe it's going to depend on, are you comfortable with dealing with maybe a few flaws or it not being as good as it was when it was brand new. In terms of open box monitors or refurbs that might have a couple dead pixels, again, if you're okay with a few dead pixels, it's fine. If you want to save that money. Personally, I can't deal with that. I need something that is pristine and 100% brand new, never been used. So I only buy new monitors. Peripherals like keyboards and mice, again, this is going to kind of more come down to your preference. Like I can understand why you would want to do that used, because like a Corsair keyboard is what, like $170 or something? They're really expensive. And I don't think any gaming mice are too pricey, but if you can get a keyboard and mice bundle for reasonably priced, you're probably fine. If you want to ask the seller to send some pictures to make sure all the backlights on the keys are working, that's fine. I don't know why I can't really think of a good scenario in which a keyboard from a used marketplace would just be dead on arrival. So I don't really see a problem with buying those new or used. Just do your homework, and then personally I would say for the seller, I'll buy this from you, but you better clean it first, because think about your keyboard and your mouse. You'd probably want someone to clean them before selling it to you. Headsets. I just don't buy used headsets. I don't think it's really sanitary. And just for me, I don't think there's any kind of cleaning or disinfecting you can do to one that would make me comfortable to buy it. I just stay away from that. That's pretty much going to do it. I think that's everything. I have a list here. Speakers, you can verify that they work. Speakers are probably fine. I talked about solid state drives, motherboards, power supplies, CPUs, cases. Yeah, I think that'll cover it. So hopefully you found this a little bit informative. You know, you can get some good deals online, I guess is the moral of the story. But you just really do need to be careful, and you need to kind of weigh the pros and cons of, I'm saving money, but if this were to fail, you know, is it going to be worth replacing it? Because, like, graphics card, if you buy it and the cooler goes out and it cooks itself and it just dies there, well, you got to buy another graphics card. I mean, it's not likely that would happen, but it's just an example. You know, you don't. Is it worth taking the chance? And you just kind of have to weigh those options. But hopefully this, I've bought plenty of used stuff, and I've had pretty good experiences. Just use common sense, I guess, is the main point. Do your research. You know, don't be afraid to ask sellers for more pictures or more information. They're trying to sell you a product. All right, you are entitled to know everything about it. All right, it's like getting a used car. You know, you deserve to get all the information about it that you can, and don't think otherwise. But hopefully this was a pretty good guide. If you have any other questions about anything I missed, let me know down in the comments, and I'll be happy to answer it. But yeah, hopefully you found this useful. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe. And yeah, thanks for watching.